In this video, the best EF lenses for Canon crop sensor cameras for video. I'm going to show you an overview of 5 lenses and why I like them, with sample shots and how I procured them along with their prices. Why EF-S lenses in 2022, you would ask me, after the launch of the RS crop sensor bodies. Right now, since the RF crop sensor cameras are out, used Canon DSLR crop sensor bodies are going to be quite cheap, and so are the lenses. Most of you watching this will be like me, hobbyists. And I think for us, the EF-S platform is more than enough to help us learn our hobby, have some fun at the same time at a very cheap price. So without much ado, let us go on to the first lens. And with no surprise, it is the kit lens. This kit lens is made out of totally plastic with a zoom range, as you would know, of 18 to 55. What is important about this lens is that it is image stabilized. And since it is image stabilized, I often find myself reaching out to it to shoot handheld video. Please wait to the end of this video, because at the end I'm going to show you my favorite lens of all. In fact, it is shooting this video as we speak. This lens of course came with the camera. For these tests, I'm going to put a lampshade which I'm going to focus on at 1 meter away from the camera, and I want you to notice how the focus is, how the background blur is, and also I want you to notice how the bokeh blur is on the light which I faced towards us, also at around 1 meter behind the lampshade. So the background is 2 meters away from the camera and the lampshade is 1 meter away from the camera. Henceforth, for this test, I will just be putting up the text of the lens I'm using and the focal length. I am going to test them at the minimal focal length and at the maximum focal length without moving the tripod at all. Also, after this, I'm going to include a time-lapse scenic view to give you another perspective. Let's start out with the kit lens at 18mm at its lowest aperture f4.0. For my next lens is actually also something which comes with the kit, but I bought my camera without this lens. I procured this lens from an offline seller itself. It was brand new but unboxed. I bought this lens for a total of 7,500 rupees, which I believe is a steal. This is of course the 55 to 50 mm. So if you notice now, we have covered the zoom range from 18 mm all the way to 250 mm. So far we have spent only 7,500 rupees on 2 lenses. Of course, considering that the 18 to 55 mm came with the camera. Of course, this also has a very plasticky body, not very well built, but come on, I paid 7,500 rupees for this. For the next lens, is no surprise, it is a nifty 50. This is an EF lens which can be used for crop sensor bodies. Beautiful bokeh, 1.8 aperture size, metal mount at the back. It's got a 48 mm filter size at the front. Opens absolutely wide. I don't know whether you can make it out in this video. I bought this brand new for rupees 8,500, I think from Amazon, a couple of years ago. All these lenses I'm going to show you today are having autofocus, so obviously they will come with the autofocus switch. The beauty of this lens is if you shift to the RF platform, you can still use this lens with an adapter. This lens I use mostly for headshot videos, but what I don't like this lens when I'm using it for headshots is that if your space is very tight, although it gives a good bokeh, if the space is very tight, for a half body headshot video I require at least 3 meters of distance. So if the space is tight, you are going to find some problems. The next lens, surprise, surprise, is a 10 to 18. This lens has got a filter size of 67 mm. Also very plasticky, but unlike the 50 mm, this one is image stabilized, which again makes a big difference for B-roll, especially if it is handheld. This at 10 mm gives a very unique perspective which you can check out in the sample shots. It's got an aperture from 4.5 to 5.6, I believe, at its maximum zoom. And of course, image stabilized, as I have mentioned. Last but not least is the lens I've been filming with all this while. The Canon 24mm STM. Since it's an STM, the autofocus motor is very quiet. And if you see, well built metal body at the back, very small opening in the front. It goes down to an aperture of 2.8, which is great. And it is great for Indo videography. This is actually my go-to lens. And look at the profile. Look at the profile, how thin it is. This is actually my go-to lens for all my headshot videos. I think 24mm converts to about 38mm with the crop. Therefore, I believe it gives the most natural focal range along with good bokeh, and at the same time it gives a good field of view. This lens cost me around 9,000, which I have bought from Amazon. And yes, I forgot to mention that the 10 to 18 cost me 10,000 rupees used. So I think it is a steal deal. It was practically in mint condition, almost unused when I picked it up. So do look for good bargains like this. I would advise you to buy, obviously, most of you might be having the kit lens, but the kit lens is relatively inexpensive. It is available in the used market for around 3,500 rupees. This one, as I mentioned, as a beginner wildlife or bird photographer, for 7,500 rupees, there's no beating this lens. The 50mm I think is a must buy. Everyone should have it in their kit. Great little lens. Also a very nice profile. STM motor, therefore no autofocus noise. Can be adapted to your RF lenses in the future. And this little thing, which I always use for my headshot videos. Also, I've used it quite often for street photography, which gives a very unique perspective. This is by far my favorite lens. I hope this one was helpful. Like, subscribe, signing out.